What's going on, peeps? Here's my question today. What is a song or album that you love dearly, but unfortunately it isn't on streaming services like Apple Music or Spotify? There are many cases of this, even though we are currently living in the streaming era of music, where buying an album is no longer necessary to hear the music. All you gotta do is hop on these streaming services and press play. Now, there are still popular songs and artists that made the decision to keep their output off these platforms. The reasons could have something to do with copyright, politics, money, art, or they just don't want to. So today, I'll be revealing some of the most popular pieces of music that aren't available on streaming. Leaks or unreleased songs will not be included, alright? Let's dive in. Up first is the mixtapes that Travis Scott dropped before his classic debut album, Rodeo. 2013's Pharaoh and 2014's Days Before Rodeo, more like a year before Rodeo. Anyway, Pharaoh received mixed reviews but had one highlight, Upper Echelon, which became a big part of his live sets to this day, but it's the only song from the project on streaming. Days Before is similar, as its singles Don't Play and Mamacita are available, but everything else isn't. Not even Drugs You Should Try It. So why? Because traditional mixtapes are supposed to be free for download on AudioMac and SoundCloud in comparison to studio albums that have more of a price. It's the reason most Lil Wayne mixtapes aren't on streaming services. I'm sure his old tapes will be available on these platforms sometime in the future, as we've seen classic mixtapes like Future's Monster eventually get added. Plus, when it was released, Scott was independent with Grand Tussle and didn't have the industry connections to sell his releases on these platforms. It cost way more money back then before independent digital distributors came along. Before he got lazy and actually made music, Frank Ocean put out Nostalgia Ultra in 2011 after joining Odd Future. It includes the popular Novocaine and Swim Good. These would be the only songs from the project to impact streaming services. It was a self-release project, quickly explaining why it was up for free download through Tumblr. It received positive reviews from critics and fans that have since begged for a streaming re-release. This was supposed to happen months later on July 26, but a conflict with Def Jam led to it being delayed indefinitely. It was going to be re-released as an EP called Nostalgia Light, containing tracks from the tape. Frank announced that the project was cancelled, with only the 2 singles getting any sort of streaming push. Another reason could be the sample clearances. Free mixtapes tend to use several samples, as due to the record not being sold for commercial use, the artist technically can't be sued. American Wedding sampled Hotel California by the Eagles, so there is no way that would get cleared. It didn't help that band member Don Healy called him a talentless prick and threatened legal action if he performed the song live again. Strawberry Swing also sampled Coldplay's Strawberry Swing. Ocean reflected on the situation on his blog in 2012, saying that Nostalgia Light is never coming out. I highly doubt the whole project will make it to streaming one day unless the Eagles fly away. Friday Night Lights is one of Cole's most acclaimed and iconic projects, yet it is never made it to streaming services. The mixtape's original songs were meant to be on Cole's first album, Cole World: The Sideline Story. Cole was obligated to remake the entire album though, since the label did not think it would sell. Instead, they released the original songs with additional freestyles as a mixtape. The only tracks that managed to crack streaming were the tracks In the Morning with Drake, of course, and Higher. Despite the label's lack of faith, the mixtape rose to the top of Google searches and Twitter trends. On the mixtape website DatPiff, the mixtape has received over 4.4 million views, over 1.2 million streams, and over 1.7 free downloads. It was awarded Mixtape of the Year at the 2011 BET Hip Hop Awards. Cole had been planning to release his mixtapes commercially since 2013. He said the release wasn't for money but for the fans and to give the mixtapes the recognition they deserve. He claimed that they are the projects that defined him as an artist. During his 10th anniversary in 2020, Cole announced he was still working on getting them up. I can only imagine that the sample clearances are preventing Cole's vision from coming true. Kanye West's Devil in a New Dress on Villamatic being one of them. Dreamville president Ibrahim Aham confirmed that if Kanye approves the samples, J. Cole's mixtapes will be released on digital streaming platforms. Let's hope Kanye gives in before the fall off. 21 Pilots are one of the biggest bands to come out of the 2010s, but before their rapid rise to fame, they put out regional at best independently in 2011 on digital platforms and CD. It is the first album to showcase the skills of Josh Dun, who joined the group in 2011 following the departure of of drummer Chris Sala and bassist Nick Thomas. It is also the band's final album to be published before they signed a record deal with Fueled by Ramen. 5 songs from Regional Best were redone and re-released on their major label debut Vessel: Guns for Hand, Hold It On To You, Ode to Sleep, Car Radio, and Shrees. In 2012, they signed to Fueled by Ramen, and the rights for Regional Best were sold to their new label. Following the release of Vessel in 2013, Regional Best was considered useless and was discontinued. It is no longer available on digital or physical formats, with the exception of platforms like Pandora and Deezer. As a result, physical copies are extremely sought after, with surprisingly high prices, usually ranging from $750 to $1,000 plus. As for the tracks themselves, a re-recorded and modified version of Lovely was released as an exclusive promotion single in Japan in April 2013 and appeared on the bonus track edition of Vessel before the albums were released. On the UK bonus edition of Vessel, the songs Glowing Eyes, Kitchen Sink, and Forest were not redone, but rather released exactly as they were on Regional Best. As a result, only 5 Regional Best tracks are available for purchase in the US, and 6 tracks including Slowdown, Anathema, Ruby, Be Concerned, Clear, and 2 are not sold anywhere. Despite the album being declared non-existent by its label and band, the album tracks have produced tens of millions of views on YouTube. Also, there was a piano medley done during their 2022 Icy tour that featured Regional Best track Forest, so they are still able to play tracks from the record, and none of the songs have samples. The only reason the record isn't present on major streaming services is due to their label not giving them the permission. Unless they get permission or leave Fueled by Ramen, maybe the complicated record will see new Glowing Eyes. Don't be concerned. If you've been to any bar, there's a high chance you've heard this classic from Garth Brooks. But despite being one of the most iconic country songs of all time, it has never touched streaming services. It was released in 1990 as the lead single for his 18 times platinum No Fences album. It followed up his previous #1 hit, The Dance, and spent 4 weeks at the Summit. And while I could go on about how amazing the song is, its backstory, and the impact it has had on country music, we are here to find out why it isn't on streaming services. The thing is that none of Garth Brooks' catalog is available on many digital streaming platforms. He's the best-selling solo albums artist in America with 156 million units sold, yet these albums aren't anywhere on Spotify or Apple Music. Brooks has been having royalty disputes for years and has been strongly against online music streaming. He wants full control of his music distribution and ownership without restrictions. Being a songwriter, he is passionate about his art being consumed physically instead of digitally for free. Garth Brooks would introduce Ghost Tunes, a streaming service and an online retailer, in 2014. His entire discography was displaced on this cutting-edge platform, which also provided a novel method of music distribution and gave record labels complete control over how their music was sold. Fair royalty payments for artists were a major focus on Ghost Tunes, underscoring Brooks' dedication to supporting and fighting for the rights of other musicians. However, a pivotal change happened in 2016 when Brooks signed an exclusive partnership with Amazon Music, a partnership that continues today. Brooks has remained steadfast in his commitment to this extensive deal with Amazon, despite persistent efforts from streaming Goliaths like Spotify and Apple Music, including direct pitches from the Spotify CEO himself. After the exclusivity agreement, Amazon acquired Ghost Tunes. This signaled a significant change in Garth Brooks' strategy for digital music distribution, giving his devoted listeners easier access to his vast discography and more convenience. Maybe one day he'll change his mind and put No Fences on streaming, because Lord knows I need it. I think people forget that this is a Big Sean track, given how all the attention over the years has gone solely to Kendrick Lamar's verse on here. He absolutely slaughters this track, having this hungry demeanor and wanting all the smoke from the current rap landscape. He called out J. Cole, Meek Mill, Drake, Big Crit, Whale, Pusha T, A$AP Rocky, Tyler the Creator, Mac Miller, Big Sean on his own track at J Electronica. He had love for these artists but had intentions of murdering them when it comes to music. It was a wake-up call for the hip-hop industry. His verse is universally acclaimed, but why is this legendary feature not on streaming services? You see, it was supposed to be on Big Sean's second album, Hall of Fame, being teased as a promo single, but it was unfortunately cut from the record entirely due to sample clearances. Of course samples are keeping this song from reaching new heights. Control contains several samples such as Where I'm From by Jay-Z, El Pueblo Unido es Alma Será Bendecido by Kila Bajon and Sergio Ortega, and an interpolation of Get Busy by Terrace Martin. Because of this, the song is legally not allowed on streaming services in the US. Unless someone in Big Sean's camp can get these samples cleared, we will never be able to bump this on Spotify. Neil Young is one of the most acclaimed artists of the 70s, having a massive discography spanning decades. I'm talking about 44 albums from 1968 to 2022. The most significant records being Harvest, After the Golden Rush, On the Beach, Rust Never Sleeps, and Harvest Moon. Now, what is the reason we can't listen to this legendary singer-songwriter's music on Spotify? Joe Rogan? So it's pretty much a political reason why Young took down his catalog. On January 24th, 2022, Young published an open letter threatening to take his songs off of Spotify if the company did not take down the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Young wrote that Spotify has a responsibility to mitigate the spread of misinformation on its platform, and accused the podcast of spreading COVID-19 false material. On January 26, Young's music was removed from Spotify, with a spokesperson for the company stating that Spotify wanted all the world's music and audio content to be available to Spotify users, and that it had a great responsibility in balancing both safety for listeners and freedom for creators. Other musicians like Joni Mitchell and members of Crosby, Stills, and Nash later took their music down. It seems like some sort of boycott that didn't really have much impact looking back at it, beyond not having Neil Young's music on Spotify. Sucks, I want to listen to Harvest Moon on a Harvest Moon. But at the end of the day, it's the artist's decision if they want their music on the platform. Knowing how many times he has changed his mind in streaming platforms, maybe it'll return soon. I want to close this one out with a sports anthem. If you've been to any football game ever, there is a chance that Here Comes the Boom by Nelly has been blasted through the speakers. It was featured in the 2005 Adam Sandler movie The Longest Yard, which Nelly made an appearance in. Despite its major popularity in the sports world, it is currently not on any streaming services. It has over 70 million views on YouTube, yet it has not been added to Spotify or Apple Music. Other songs from the soundtrack like Fly Away or Every Time are available, but not this one. I've heard you've actually had to purchase the physical CD for the soundtrack to even listen to it properly. It's almost like some sort of lost media. The only explanation I could find is that Nelly never officially released it for the soundtrack and only wanted to include it during the end of the movie. It was never cleared by the man or his label, so the soundtrack managers couldn't give it a proper release. I don't know what is stopping Nelly from doing so, given it's one of the biggest warm-up songs of all time. You're missing out on such a fat paycheck, dude. Come on. Thank you for watching this video. I wanted to switch it up from my normal Rise to Fame content. What other songs do you wish were on streaming services? Let me know in those comments. Also, make sure to like and subscribe for more based content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.